Welcome back, friends, to the show that never ends, the Orloff Show here, Rural Retreat, Virginia. Welcome back home, where you belong, the Hotel Orloff, ladies and gentlemen. Well, tonight, I thought I'd do a special little impromptu episode. It won't be a really long one, but I wanted to salute Nighttiger Comics down in Florida. Wonderful YouTube influencer and friend for many years. He has reached over 2,000 subscribers and is having a celebration, a party over on his channel, and he's going to have a contest. He just wants, he's got a giant box of really cool comics he's giving away to some lucky person that enters, and they have to meet certain rules, and he's put up some criteria, much like a high school English teacher. He's told us exactly how to enter this contest. Rule one is you have to be a subscriber, which I have subscribed to his channel for many years, and I highly recommend that you do as well. Rule number two is you got to put in the description of the chat down below that you have a link to the video that you've created. All right, so let's see. Let me sit down and read these rules. Plug this phone in. Okay, so you have to be a subscriber. You have to comment in the chat below, the comments down below, and provide a link to the video that you create. And then you have to do several other things. One, you have to explain yourself why you do not collect Golden Age comics. Like, what is wrong with you? What is your major malfunction? Or you have to explain why you do collect Golden Age comics and talk about how wonderful it is. So, in my case, I'll tell my story and my years of collecting comics. Been collecting comics since 1969, ladies and gentlemen. At age 4, when I bought, or I guess it was bought for me, a copy of Gold Key's Choo Choo Charlie. Love comics ever since. Now, Golden Age comics, I guess I really became aware of Golden Age comics in depth in 1975 in 5th grade when I got for Christmas, I think it was for Christmas, or somehow my parents helped me obtain Jim Steranko's History of Comics, a 2-volume set that shows the history of comics going back to the pulps. And it has plenty of covers and even original art. I should just show you what those look like. I'll do that in a second. But Jim Steranko is, of course, a very important artist that came along in the late 60s to Marvel Comics Group and brought a op art style, a new generation, fresh blood infusion, transfusion into Marvel, and man, it looked like. Of course, he wasn't there for long. He left comics and went off to create his own magazine and publishing empire and all that. But he had a whole history of comics, 2 volumes. He meant to do more, but he never did. And so I learned about that time period of the late 30s and 40s and into the 50s. And then, man, I guess it was 7th grade, I obtained a book called Comics, which is spelled C-O-M-I-X, A History of Comics by Les Daniels. And that book showed me even more the history of comics. But he showed a lot more than just going back to the Golden Age. He showed underground comics, and he showed which were an interesting thing. Underground comics came along in the '60s, and they were created by this young generation, of hippies that had read the Golden Age comics, and especially the EC comics, and then had that stuff ripped away from them when the Comics Code came in and cleaned up comics. And so the underground comics were kind of like a part of that rock and roll explosion of that time period, and they were, like a big middle finger back towards that establishment that took away their comics as kids. And so they recreated those comics, but added times 10, the times 100, the offensive content that those late Golden Age comics, or you might call them Atomic Age comics, the pre-code stuff. Anyway, so I was aware of the Golden Age, but I thought, I'll never be able to afford that. And unless you were buying it in the 60s, and even if you were an adult in the 70s, and especially the 60s, you could have been buying up Golden Age comics affordably, because they were only 20 years old then. But I wasn't, and Captain Strangelove, he's got a few years. I guess he's got about 13. There's about a 13-year difference between Captain Strangelove and myself. So when I was born in 1965, he was 13. So, yeah, because he famously always says he was born in 1952. But wait, does that add up right? 52? Yeah. So, yeah, I'm not good at math. If you were 13 years old in 1965, man, you could have been buying up everything. You could have been, getting all the greatest Marvel comics right fresh off the rack, and the great DC stuff, and then you just go to a secondhand bookstore and pick up that old stuff, and pretty cheap. So anyway, I'd go to my first convention there, I guess in the late 70s, and I'd see these old Golden Age comics, and they're all hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, and I figured, I'll never be able to afford Golden Age. That's just something don't even want to consider those wonderful, beautiful books I'd see there, the Fiction House, the EC books. I love them, but I thought, well, I'll just have to get these Russ Cochran box sets of all the EC comics. That's how I'll read them. And I'll read reprints, and sometimes DC and Marvel would reprint old stories, and there'd be reprints in these big books like the Comic Book Heroes and everything. So I loved the Golden Age. I just knew, shoot, I can't afford it. And I'd see these older people, man, these old men that were probably my age back in the 70s and 80s, but they were the original buyers of the Golden Age comics. They were the ones that bought, Detective Comics in 1939 and 1940 off the rack, and still had their original comics. And they were at these conventions trading amongst each other, and you got a comic that's worth thousands of dollars, and you trade it for another comic that's worth thousands of dollars. Well, you've made an exchange, but you really haven't exchanged money. And so that's how I thought they were all doing it, because I thought, who's able to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on these comics? And I've never really been a wealthy man in my life, ever. It just, I chose a career, a fulfilling, good career that it just doesn't pay a lot of money. So I bought the comics I could. But then Nighttiger, has this YouTube channel, and his thing is Golden Age is where it's at. He's gotten rid of a lot of his modern comics, and he focuses very laser-like on the Golden Age, and he explains, guys, you can buy these Golden Age comics. They're not all just completely out of your reach. You can pick up Golden Age comics for $30, $40, $50, $60. Even, something that's spectacular enough, $100, and you've got something that's not just cool, it's a historical artifact. I mean, it's part of our American history. This is a very young country. We're about to be 250 years old. I remember the 200th birthday back when I was in 5th grade, 1976, but now next year is the 250th birthday party. And so comics go back, you know, these heroes, Superman, Batman, go back, dang, what, 80, 85 years? That's a big chunk of the history of, it's a big percentage of these are our heroes, our folk heroes, our mythology. And they're important. And Nighttiger is this wonderful, I don't know if you've seen his, you must have. If you're watching this, you've seen Nighttiger. Nighttiger, I've watched him for years. I admired him early on, back before Trump became president the last time. I remember seeing him on wearing a Trump hat, and I thought, man, this guy's not afraid to tell it the way it is. He's a good man. You know, I'm getting off topic. Let me finish this golden age thing. I'd see these people, I thought I could never be one of those old guys. Well, I can be an old guy. It's easy to become old. It's somewhat easy. Just survive long enough. But I thought I'll never be able to afford them. He says, yes, you can afford them. People like Jerry the Jitterbug say the same thing. You can afford them, and you can even learn to restore them or conserve them. And these are great people. They're influencers. They influence you not to slab your comics, to read them, because this is part of our history. You know, it's not. You know, you want to read these books, and they're beautiful, and so they are affordable. I guess, you know, if you pick up a few $30-$40 books in 1 month. But you just, the danger in it always is the addictive nature of collecting anything. Even though they're inexpensive, you think, wow, that's so great. I'm able to go on eBay and find, because there are golden age books you can get for $2, $5. I bought copies of Giggle and Ha Ha and kind of low grade, good condition, you know, good minus, at Duncanville Books in Dallas, near Dallas, for $2, you know, in the $2 bin, and there are copies, and you know, it's like these beautiful Dell Lone Ranger comics with painted covers. They had them priced at $5, lots of them, and they would never sell. I'd say, okay, I come back 5-6 months later, at Lone Ranger comics still there, because there's not many people that know who the Lone Ranger is or care. It's not Wolverine, it's not Spawn, Venom, Carnage, whatever the heck. But you can't afford these comics. He's correct, and I do collect them when I can. But I'm still a little nervous about it. I don't want to. Being a collector, you have this personality where you just want to keep getting more and more. I want to be careful I don't get too dependent on the endorphins, the amorphins, or whatever it is, a dopamine that courses through your body when you get these cool old comics. If I go too nuts, then man, we're screwed. Drew, the dog, do you need to go take a walk? She might need to take a walk. Do you need to take a walk? I'm going to take the dog for a walk. But let me see, did I answer that question? I collect Golden Age comics. Not as much as I'd like to, because I don't have much money. I'm retired. I'm barely, I'm trying to get by. But Golden Age comics are really, I really admire Nighttiger. They're really where it's at. These beautiful old comics. They're fantastic. Right, Drew the dog? Okay, hold on. Let me go walk her. So the answer to the first question is, yes, I collect Golden Age. I dearly love it, and I recommend other people seek them out. Just be careful that you don't get the bug too hard, because you don't want problems at home, spending too much money, that kind of thing. The second question, or I think he asked, is your favorite era of comics? I can make a case for just about any era of comics. Well, actually, no, I can't. I can make a case for the the Golden Age is obviously wonderful. It's why it's called the Golden Age, man. But it's beautiful and everything, but it wasn't. It doesn't evoke a feeling of nostalgia in me, other than a secondhand nostalgia from my father, where I can imagine what it was like for him and during World War II to buy these patriotic comics and everything. I can understand that, and I love but nostalgia is to remind you of your youth. So really, the early Bronze Age, the 20-cent era of comics is what really brings out what do they call it, the feels in me. Because I was born in 65. So I was 10 in 75. So those early years when comics were 20 cents are what really gets me. But during that time period, I became aware of my older brother's time period of comics, which was the 1960s, those 12-cent and 15-cent comics. And so, which wasn't that far back. And that's the time period that most resonates deeply with me, because that's when I started buying comics. So, but I kind of wish that I was part of the early 50s generation. The dog almost tripped me, because that was when I wish I could have been buying EC comics off the rack. That would have been great. But my favorite era, I would have to say, man, what was it? What was that? It was a lady that was on YouTube, and then she kind of retired from YouTube, and then she would come back occasionally. Her name, man, what was her name? She collected Lois Lane and Superman titles, Batman, DC titles. I think it was silver-haired Bronze Age Babe. I think that was the name she went by. And she said once that, let me put you down hold on. I gotta put the leash on the dog. Okay. She said that people tend to collect 10 years. I don't know, she said they collect 10 years, I think from when they first started buying comics, they collect 10 years back and 10 years forward after that. So if I first started really buying comics, say around 1970, that means I would go back to 1960 and forward to 1980. And that's actually just about right. Because all throughout the 60s, Marvel and DC were spectacularly great. And all the other publishers were too, honestly. And then to me, by the, in the early 70s, DC was great. All the monster comics, everything was great. But Drew, let's go this way. But it was after, it seemed like in the late 70s, it seems like maybe when Martin Goodman left Marvel as the publisher and Stan Lee took over, it seemed like things got changed, and it was a lot more licensed properties where they'd make comics out of toys, out of, they started putting out things like Pizzazz magazine, and there was these Transformers comics, and it seemed like they lost their vision, and the comics just weren't as much fun to me as they were in the early 70s. And I mean, they were still fun, but it seems like by the mid 80s and definitely into the 90s, that was not my time period for the most part. So I have to say the 60s. And my favorite, really the greatest year in my life, I don't even remember it, but it happened during my lifetime because I was 1 year old. I don't have any memory of 1966, but that was the great year. Culturally, it was for music, for comics, for just about everything. Culture, pop culture. 1966 was just a great year. And so 1966 was a great time. But anyway, he was asking in his questions, favorite era. No, yeah, he was asking favorite era. Okay, so I'd say the Bronze Age. No, I'm saying Silver Age is my favorite era. Into the early Bronze Age would be my favorite era of collecting, because I can afford it for the most part, and because it was when I was a kid. But honestly, the EC comics were better than anything. The EC comics were the high water mark, and that brings me to the next question he asked, which is your favorite publisher of all time, which is a very difficult question. It's like asking a mother, which one of these children is your favorite child? And it's not like a question that you really want to answer. But EC Comics, the writing, the art, probably the best thing in the history of comics. But then you say, well, what about Fiction House with all these beautiful science fiction and Jungle Girl comics? And it's like, oh yeah. Oh, well, what about the Will Eisner Spirit sections? What about but what about Fawcett? What about that great Captain Marvel? Oh, but what about DC? What about 60s DC with Doom Patrol and Metal Men? Well, what about Marvel? How about that Galactus trilogy? How about that panel where Mary Jane Watson first appears, which I have coming in the mail Tuesday from Gotham City Comics, by the way. I'm excited about that. It's like, come on, Drew, let's go this way. We're in virgin snow. No one's walked here before. It's nice out here, man. Beautiful evening. Look at this. But as far as favorite publisher, he wants you to come up with one. So I would say EC Comics, but as far as what probably EC Comics. But I sure do love that 60s Marvel and the early 70s Marvel, and then DC in there too. I mean, it's just, but if I have to go with one, I'll have to say EC was what do the kids say? The GOAT. Greatest of all time. But, I don't know. Then, I have the list of questions back in the house, and I forgot what was the next one. Okay, so I answered, I hope I've answered. Okay, he said, he wants you also in this contest to show a comic book, like the comic book that, basically like your favorite comic book or favorite cover or just something. And I'll pull that out as soon as we get back into the hotel, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. It's nice out here. It's not frigid. It was getting down negative temperatures. It's probably, I don't know. I'm getting used to the cold temperatures. Maybe it's 30. It could be 20 out here, but it doesn't feel that bad. When it gets down closer to zero, man, then you start to feel it. It starts to be painful. And then that's no joke. It's like living on Mars, man. In reality, Mars isn't a place where you can run around naked like John Carter and Deja Thoris, man. It gets to be 80 degrees below zero. Trust me, I've been there. I was born on Mars. But I talked about that in some of my early episodes. You all know about that. I hear a little bit of dripping, so a little bit is melting of the snow. Yeah, man. Another Saturday night. Isn't that a great song by Sam Cooke? Oh, let me talk to you a little bit about Nighttiger and how great this guy is. Not to butter him up about the contest. It's all going to be a random draw, I guess, of the videos. But he's just a wonderful guy. I mean, a great guy. He's kind of like the kids in high school that I remember. There were some people I hung around with in art class that were kind of these heavy metal guys, and back in the early 80s, some of them went on to be in a band called okay, let me get through. Hold on a second. The high school I went to, there were a lot of bands that came out of that. There was some of the friends of mine in art class went on to be in a band called Rigor Mortis. I remember Hardin Harrison won the 6th grade spelling bee, and he was later in a band, Rigor Mortis, and Casey Orr, and I remember these other guys that were hung around, or they partly went to the other high school across town. They formed Pantera, and then Casey Orr was later in Guar, bands like that. Anyway, why am I talking about heavy metal? Nighttiger's kind of like one of these old heavy metal guys that you knew in high school if you're my age. And he's a great guy. He's a very godly guy, very religious guy. He loves comic books dearly. And like all of us, really, I think all of us comic collectors, we love comics. And part of our love for comics and this love of something from our childhood comes out of pain. You know, I think a lot of us have issues from our past, and I know I do. And I think most collectors, I would say, if you're 60 or around that age and you're really into comics and toys, you probably have a reason you're clinging to your childhood. And Nighttiger's told us the story several times about his childhood, and I think I've shared some about mine. And anyway, it's yeah, we've all got trauma. We've all had wonderful lives. We've all had scary things that happen, but for some reason we're all collecting comics, and that's great. It's really not that unhealthy unless you're overspending, in which case I'm sure you're hearing about it. It can be an unhealthy addiction. I guess there's worse things than comic books to be addicted to, but you just gotta be careful with that. Okay, be a subscriber. Add the link. Why I collect Golden Age. I said I collect Golden Age. I just don't have a lot of it. I've got 2 short boxes, basically. My favorite era would be the Silver Age and early Bronze Age. Favorite publisher, EC. Secondly, it would be Marvel. Marvel and DC in the 60s. Marvel with a slight edge. But DC, man, that Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes and Doom Patrol and Metal, they had a lot of Metamorph, they had a lot of great stuff. So, just a wonderful time. I started talking about that year, 1966, a wonderful year for rock and roll, for comics, for everything. Okay, I think I got all that. Oh, everything he wants, why on everything. Very much like an English teacher. It's like, don't just tell me you like EC Comics. You got to tell me why do you like that. Why do I like the Silver Age? The art, the writing. It's the stuff that people say is silly. I see these young people, they say, why does Superman have red underwear on in this new movie? That looks dumb. Why does he have a dog with a cape? Because that was the great era. And James Gunn understands that. I hope that James Gunn doesn't get... I don't think he's part of this Jeffrey Epstein stuff. I hope not. But that list is supposed to come out soon. But I know he's found some of that stuff funny in the past. That's the only reason I love James Gunn in his movies. I just wish he didn't have those scars about him. But anyway, I think that movie will be great. And obviously, if he's bringing crypto into the movies, he understands. Favorite, okay, so my If you don't collect Golden Age, why? If you do collect, why? I collected Golden Age because it's beautiful, it's historical, it makes me happy. Why? Favorite era? Why? Because the 60s were great. It's a great time. It makes me feel wonderful to hold Steve Ditko, a John Romita comic, the Fantastic Four from the 60s, the Kirby art. Favorite publisher, EC. Love EC. I think I understand what it was like to be that 10-year-old that picked up the Mad EC color comic in the early 50s. I know what it felt like because as a second grader, no, I had just graduated second grade a few days before, and we were about to leave Virginia to move to San Antonio, Texas. We were getting in the car. I stopped at that 7-Eleven down the street one last time, and there was Plop #1. And a lot of comic collectors poo-poo Plop and say, why does anyone want that? I guess the cover's kind of cool, but the insides are meh. Meh. I hate people that say meh. It's like, are you kidding me? Plop #1, you open it up and it's like EC and Mad Magazine and everything that I've loved. Bernie Wrightson art, it's Sergio Aragones, and you've got Wally Wood and Basil Wolverton. There was a lot of these old EC artists were in there in a horror humor comic, which is what Mad started as. In the very first few issues of the Mad comic that EC put out, it was a horror humor comic, and then it started to become more parodies of other comics and popular culture. But I couldn't believe Plop. And about the same time, I started seeing the paperback reprints of the old EC Comics Mad before it turned into a magazine. And it's like, oh, this is perfect. Then when I see the underground comics later in the late 70s, I became aware of them. And it's like, that's just something I love. So EC, just beautiful. Just, it connects with me. Favorite publisher and why? I just said that. Oh, best comic and why. Let's go digging in the comics. And then I think I'll have everything done, except I have to add the link to this video once it uploads to... Okay, let's make sure I stand up without hitting this light, because it's very dangerous. You can stand up, and trust me, it's happened enough times where you bang the top of your head, and I don't want to do that, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so we'll look for, I think he wants me to tell why I've chosen this comic, and it might be in this box, it's possible. It's either in this box or the other one. Well, I was telling you about what a great guy Nighttiger was, and he, if you're his friend, he'll send you tons of comics just free. It's just like he always is buying comics, but he'll sometimes, it's like I have a halo. He buys comics, and sometimes he'll buy comics. Oh, I already have that, but that would be great to give away to this person or that person. Or he's like an ambassador for Golden Age comics. He wants people to buy them, so he wants you to get as excited about Golden Age comics as he is, so he tries to get other people hooked. And that may not sound right. Okay. So it's like, he's like if typhoid was a good disease, he's like the Typhoid Mary of Golden Age comics. He wants to spread the wonderful germs around so that you will become a comic book junkie like he is. Oh, look at this one. I'm not saying this is my favorite cover, but it's one I got recently. It's Fiction House. There's no Jungle Girl on the cover. It's just a beautiful comic. Look at that. Okay. All right. I'm getting distracted. I'm trying to find a particular comic. Look at this, man. You believe that? This is what Nighttiger's talking about. John Wayne comics. How do I not own every copy of John Wayne? It's Just a wonderful time period. Okay. Oh, here's John Carter of Mars. Yeah, he's dressed kind of conservatively there. But trust me, you need a lot more clothes than that, or it gets real cold there on Mars. These are the man. Jumbo has tons of these Jumbo comics, and Sheena and all these fiction houses. He loves these comics. I love them too. I thought at one point in the 80s, I thought I'm going to become a fiction house collector, and I started buying them, and then I realized I can't keep going, man. I thought if every time I go to a convention I buy one or two, eventually I'll have them all. But then you realize, no, I also have to. I just couldn't do it. Wish I could have. Okay, it's not going to be this box, is it? I don't think so. Oh, you know something Nighttiger did that was so wonderful? I got to show you. Look at this. I love this art. It's an Archie imitation, but this Maisie comic, I just love the style. I mean, it's not a slavish Archie imitation. You can tell where the idea came from, but then, you know, Archie comes from the Andy Hardy movies. I mean, nothing's really original. Okay, it's going to be in the other box. My mother was always doodling all the time. On the phone, she'd be doodling a woman's face, a profile. And I said, well, what is that, Mom? What are you drawing? And she says, oh, I used to read this comic book, or this comic when I was a little girl called Tilly the Toiler. And I said, I've said it on the show before. I wish I could find some Tilly the Toiler comics, because that's what my mom dearly loved. And Nighttiger sent me a Tilly the Toiler comic just in the mail in memory of my mother. Can you imagine how nice that is? That's he really embodies really everything it means to be a Christian. Just a super nice guy. Okay, it's gonna be this box. Got lots of pillows down here for Drew the dog. It's a comic book clubhouse up here. Okay. Look at this. See, Nighttiger sent me this. This is the comic he sent me. That's the face my mother was always drawing. And when I asked my dad about comic books, he said he liked Captain Midnight, and he said he remembered having a Superman comic that showed his spaceship going away from the exploding planet Krypton, you know, and I thought, I wonder if he had the first. I'm sure he didn't, but it's possible because he was born in the late 20s. He very much could have been. Yeah, he would have been a 10, 8-year-old kid when Action Comics #1 came out. Could have been, but oh well. Here's another. It's a Tasty Freeze comic, another one of those comics of Maisie. Okay. So, but I haven't answered your question yet. Oh, here it is. Okay. Now, this, I don't know. Is this the most valuable comic in my collection? No. I mean, I've got... No, it isn't. But it's one of my favorite things. Just everything about it is perfect. Some people would look at it and say it's stupid, but then a lot of people look at me and say I'm stupid. It's just. But no, this is. Let me set this up. It's everything about this. The title. Okay. First of all, this comic I'm about to show you has a cover swipe from the Blue Beetle #1, I believe. I'm aware of that. But there's something. Let me just pull it out of the bag. This is, if I had a comic book wall, this would be on it. It's Roly Poly Comics, #15. Now that's basically traced from this guy punching the guy with a knife from Blue Beetle #1, but a different costumes on the guy, and Look at these criminals that have pants like that. I just think it's something great. And the fact that it's called Roly Poly Comics, and it makes no sense with this picture. That's all part of it almost looks like an underground comic from the late 60s. It almost looks like a parody of the Golden Age. It makes me laugh. It makes me smile. It makes me happy. So, you know, this could use a press. It could use a cleaning. It could use all that stuff. But it's probably not ever going to happen. But because I don't know how to do all that. I can imagine what someone like Jerry the Jitterbug or, you know, these people, Nighttiger knows how to clean comics and everything too. Jerry the Jitterbug is like the master of it. This is the Adventures of Mr. C. Anyway, this is a whole different era. I paid, this was an expensive book when I bought it. I think I got a slight discount, but it's from 1946. I paid $120 for it, and I haven't. I'm trying to think. The most I've ever paid for a comic might be maybe Spider-Man, the first Kingpin appearance, The Amazing Spider-Man, number 50. I think that is it 50? I think so. Yeah, I think that's the most I've ever spent. I paid $300 for that. I'm not a high roller. I've never bought comics in the thousands, anything like that. Yeah, I just. But this is a great book. I got this from Gotham City Comics in Mesa, Arizona. Hold on. I wanted to show you something else. This is a great Golden Age comic also that shows what really happened on that island. Just kidding. But what's cool now, I'm enjoying these facsimiles that are coming out that you can buy very affordably of these old comics. This is about the only way I'd ever be able to touch one of these old comics is through these facsimile editions. But oh well. What can I tell you, ladies and gentlemen? So I think I've checked all the boxes for this contest. I'm pretty sure. Let me see. So I've got a few other things I was going to show you here in a minute. I uncovered some paperbacks that I thought you might be interested in seeing. Oh boy. Give me a second. Oh boy. Just a minute, there's a pause button. Anyway, this is the comic collection as of February the 23rd, 2025. And magazines, some comics over here. This is everything, man. Except for a couple of boxes of Wizard downstairs. So thought I'd do a quick video. Hadn't planned on it to show. Oh, and this is my only slabbed comic, and I wish it wasn't slabbed, but I got it real cheap to help out a guy that was, for some reason, he was homeless, living in his car, and his car was filled with really cool comic book collectibles. So I had to get that. I have that comic reprinted in a PS Art Books hardcover with all the ads and everything. So I'm not in a huge rush to break it out of the slab. Drew's all comfortable, but I gotta go downstairs. I don't have time for this nonsense. We got other things to do than hang out up here on the 47th floor of the Groucho Orloff Building of Trade, the Groucho Orloff Inspirational Network, the Hotel Orloff. We don't have time for this nonsense. Okay, so let's. Oh, I gotta get my phone charger. Then we're ready to go. Once again, why I collect Golden Age. Because I love it. Favorite era. Silver Age, early Bronze Age. Favorite publisher because it's when I was a child, you know. The favorite publisher, EC, because they were a high water mark for the industry. Great art, great writing. It was like Twilight Zone mixed with gore, mixed with cynicism, mixed with everything that's wonderful. Best comic, I showed it to you. Roly Poly, what was it, number 15? Nobody else is going to give you that. I'm just kidding. It was really the New Mutants 98 with where Deadpool looks like a stretched out deer. No, just being funny. No offense to those of you that love Deadpool and Venom and Carnage. I salute you. No, I don't. I don't really. I hate. I like Amazing Spider-Man before all those goblin demonic stuff was added in. That's not my time period. Okay, what am I doing? Okay, I'm going downstairs. Watched Captain Strangelove earlier today on a live stream and showed some cool stuff. I want to send a salute out to him and all he's been going through and his wife. And man, it's a rough situation, he was telling me. And I want to let Dr. Silveridge, an old friend, I want to send him condolences and prayers. The passing of his father I heard of today, and everyone else that's going through rough stuff. Yeah, but you just got to stay in prayer, and there's good times ahead for all of us. I'm thinking this next 4 years is going to be fun, but I don't want to jinx myself, because as soon as you start saying something's fun, then something horrendous happens. But let's see what I got here. I got some paperbacks to show you that I just uncovered. Look at this, man. This issue of, how about some light? Let's get some light going, man. It's ridiculous. When I do a show that's less than an hour, hardly anyone watches. People like long-form shows, at least as far as my show goes. So I'm trying to make sure this stretches to over an hour. Is really what I'm doing, actually. It's getting hot down here. This is a reprint of a Shadow Pulp, but it's got a Jim Stranko cover. I was going to show you the front covers of those Stranko books, History of Comics. I don't want to go back upstairs. You know what they look like. You've seen them. You probably have them. But anyway, Jim Stranko did these beautiful painted covers. And I was just talking to Meyer Greenblatt about Get Smart earlier today. And he was saying that he watched a TV movie where they had Barbara Feldon and Don Adams come back and reunite. And I said, there was another reunion movie before that was theatrical called The Nude Bomb. And he says, oh, yeah. And so anyway, just nostalgia for this. Now, he was a Marine in World War II, the Don Adams, the comedian. And if you are if you've been in the military and you watch Get Smart, you know, you probably watched it as a kid, but if you watch it again now, you'll see that he really, this is what I've been told, when he handles his weapons as the secret agent and Get Smart, they said you can tell he is a very well trained. You can tell he knows what he's doing. He's not just some comedian they hired, some stand-up traveling comedian they hired to play a James Bond character. It's like suddenly you realize, oh, this guy is maybe a goofball, but he's deadly, you know. Anyway, Get Smart. Here's another. I love Get Smart. I was just asking, man, where do you? I have the whole first season of Get Smart on DVD and downstairs, but I'd like to see the rest of the series. I don't know if anyone's streaming it or not. If you know, let me know down below. Edgar Casey's Story of Jesus. This guy that's talking on the TV right behind me, he thinks he's the reincarnation of Edgar Casey, and he does. I don't know if there's no photographs of Edgar Casey in here. He really does look like Edgar Casey. It's kind of here's oh my gosh, you've heard of The Princess Bride? I'm sure everybody. Oh, I love that movie, and you know it has like some Monty Python, at least one Monty Python person in it. It was a movie, especially girls love this movie from the 80s, or was it? Yeah, it was probably the 80s. Princess Bride. Anyway, this is the original book it's based on. The movie didn't look like that. If the movie looked like that, well, I'd probably be watching it a lot more often. Here's William. It's William Goldman, also the author of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, Marathon Man. Those were both turned into movies. The rest of them, I don't know. Oh, okay, here we go. What do we got here? In the 70s, when I was like in 4th grade, these books started coming out. The Bantam Trivia Quiz Book. Do you remember these trivia? This was part of the nostalgia boom of the 70s. Guys that were about my age. Well, let's see. 20, 30, 40. Yeah. You'd be about my age. If someone my age in the 1970s might have been born about 1920, and they would, oh, this had some water damage. They would remember all of this this stuff, and there were a lot of books that came out in this time period, nostalgic for that time period of the 30s and 40s and into the 50s, and so this is a trivia quiz book, and so it's got all about different categories: radio, musicals, presidents, but there was a sequel to that. The Bantam Trivia Quiz Book 2, and this has a comics section, you see. There's Batman, and yeah. But then there was another book that came out, and this is by Jerry Robinson, The World's Greatest Comics Quiz. And the man who brought you the Joker now brings you the world's greatest comics quiz. So it has all these questions. It's like it's like an SAT test. It's like A, B, C, or D. Let's see. What character was named the Cheese King of 1937 by a grateful National Cheese Institute? A, Joe Palooka, B, Mickey Mouse, C, Wimpy, or D, Alley Oop? So it's got a Fantastic Four right next to Mud and Jeff. Captain America was the brainchild of what artist and writer team? Life would be dull, and so would the plots. If super characters had no weaknesses, the following are the Achilles heels of what superheroes? A, anything made of wood. B, fire. C, having bracelets linked. D, water. Or E, the color yellow. And the answer to that. Man. Come on, man. Oh, sure. I didn't even find the answer. Isn't that amazing? Look at that. Just a few books that I've uncovered in my spelunking here. Thought I'd show you those. Well, I don't know if there's anything else I can manifest for you that might entertain you here on this wonderful winter evening, Saturday evening. Let's see. So to sum up tonight's fantastic evening, the wonderful fun we've had, subscribe to Nighttiger. Check out his channel if you haven't already done that years ago. He's a great ambassador for a time period and for people to not just buy and preserve these fantastic Golden Age comics, but to truly love them. He's trying to spread his love. He spreads his love for Christ, but he also spreads his love for these Golden Age comics, and he's just a great guy. And yeah, he always says everybody's a brother, and among these the collectors, and he's right. We're all brothers, and I always said we're all. You know, it makes it sound better than to say you're a collector of comics and toys or whatever, records. It's just better to say you're a curator of a museum. So he's a curator of a museum down in Florida. We here are a curator of a museum here in Rural Retreat, Virginia, and we salute all of you out there, and I'm praying for all of you and everything you're going through, but just buck up, because we've got wonderful things happening now in the world, I think, and every day, every week, it's hard to imagine how much has changed in just 1 week. I don't know. People may disagree with me, but they're wrong. I'm just kidding. But you know I'm not kidding, but I'm trying to pretend to be a nice guy. It's very painful. It hurts me to understand. But I guess, I don't know. I don't understand why you don't love Donald Trump. What's wrong with you? There's something insane. Are you mad? Anyway, comic books. Aren't they wonderful, ladies and gentlemen? Oh my gosh. Look at them. Look at them, I tell you.